So here's the scenario. You're sitting in your office. It's evening. You're about to head home. You're thinking, what will the traffic be like? And your supervising partner comes in and says, hey, we just discovered this email. This is an opponent's email that we want to use at trial, and trial starts tomorrow. Go figure out every way we can get this exhibit in. So that's what you're faced with. It's the eve of trial. You don't have time for a lengthy pretrial hearing, which you would have normally done weeks before. So the question is, what's your approach? Our goal today is to talk to you about what I like to call the lifeboat rules of evidence. In other words, what are the critical rules of evidence that any trial lawyer needs to make and meet objections and to succeed in getting this document in? What you want to ask yourself is, how can I bulletproof my case for trial? So I look at this exhibit, and I want to think of every single theory of admissibility I can generate. Why is it relevant? For what separate purposes is it relevant? How can I authenticate it? And is there an issue of hearsay that I need to address? So let's talk about the federal rules. And the idea is, when we're approaching a case going to trial, we need a theory of the case. Our theory of the case, as BMI's lawyers, is Minicom failed to request insurance. So we performed on our contract, so our case is about a contract, and our legal theory is they failed to perform. So under the federal rules, we want to talk about why we should win this case and what rules apply. Now let's just back up a second and say, at what point do these rules apply? Well, as we know, the federal rules apply in all civil and criminal trials. And our discussion today is going to focus on civil trials, a civil trial. But I want to talk about one of the most powerful tools we have under the federal rules of evidence. And it's the first rule I always go to. Federal Rule of Evidence 102 says that trials should be decided, and these rules should be applied to achieve a fair result. So if you're ever stuck on an evidentiary issue, ask yourself, is it fair? Because if you can show that it's fair, there's a good chance you'll be able to get it in. The other issue we're now faced with is we've got this exhibit. We're on the eve of trial. I still want the judge to decide the admissibility of this document before the trial starts. And I'm going to refer to the rules by their number. And so if you have a copy of the federal rules, the rule you want to look to is 104A. And Federal Rule of Evidence 104A is a great rule for us because it says, before the trial starts, if a judge is going to determine the admissibility of this email, she is not bound by the rules of evidence except with respect to privilege. That's a great tool. What does that mean? Almost every objection, and we're talking about objections today, almost every objection at trial is a failed motion in limine. In other words, we should have identified an evidentiary issue and shown it to the judge before the trial starts. And why is that? Because when she is determining the admissibility of this exhibit, she can consider hearsay. She can consider otherwise inadmissible evidence as long as it's reliable. And reliable sounds like what word? Fair. So if I can get a motion in limine on file tonight and show it to my judge tomorrow morning, I'll get a hearing outside the presence of the jury where the judge will not be bound by the rules of evidence.